श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So, so we are reading uh, chapter Canto 4, chapter 13, the title of which is Descendants of Dhruv Maharaj. So I was just wondering myself, why do we have to study so much about descendants? We see some of the chapters are actually full, descendants and names after names after names. There's so much description of so many great personalities. So I was just wondering why we are reading so much. Like there's so much description, so much information about so many people, some of them very well known, some of them famous, we know, some of them we don't know. So then it clicked to me that Shrimad Bhagavatam is very, very systematic. And there are a lot of times people say that scriptures that we study are mythological. And when there is description, when Shukdev Goswami is giving all these names, that is actually proving the fact that it's not mythological, it's historical. It's establishing that it's not just in some fantasy land that all these people were living. It actually proves that yes, these are the descendants, this is the lineage, and this is a history, more of a history, more of a past rather than a myth. So this is one reason why we are reading so much about so many dynasties, so many descendants, and so many names that we are reading. The other reason is Bhagavatam is not just a description of Lord and his pastimes. The devotees of the Lord are also an integral part of Lord and his activities and his pastimes. So these all these descendants, some of them are actually the devotees. And that is why we are reading about them. And also there was one more reason that I found, that Supreme Personality of Godhead also appeared in these dynasties. There are basically two dynasties, the Surya Vansh and Chandra Vansh. So Lord also appeared sometimes in Surya Vansh, sometimes in Chandra Vansh, and that is why we are reading about all these descendants, all these dynasties. So it's not just names, and it's not just some just mundane thing we are reading. It's a systematic study that we are doing, and henceforth we are studying about the descendants. Now, linking it to today's relevance, so what we are reading now is conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. And Maitreya has been describing the descendants of Dhruv Maharaj. And then there was a description of a king named Anga. So Vidura is asking that why even Anga was so pious. Anga is a really pious king, even though he's so pious. And why did he have a son who was like Vena. We'll see. When we come across, we'll see why why Vena was impious, and we'll read in detail about that. And then, in response to this question, Maitreya started describing the events leading up to the birth of King Vena. So, King Anga, being a pious king, he was performing an Ashwamedha sacrifice. So, it's a very elaborate sacrifice. They have lots of priests, they have lots of paraphernalias, lots of rituals, and everything to be followed. So, even though the Brahmanas were qualified, the paraphernalia was everything was pure and perfect. All the elaborate rituals, everything was done nicely, everything was perfectly performed. Even then, even the verse recitation was perfect, everything was perfect. Even then, the demigods did not come and accept the oblations. So normally, the sacrifice process is how this is how it works. That with the fire, everything is being sacrificed, and then the demigods come and take their share. Whichever mantra is spoken for whichever demigod, they come and take the share. Now, in times of King Anga, everything was so pure that the demigods themselves used to come, and that is how the priests, they found out that yes, the demigods have not come. So we'll start with today's verse 29. Mataji, if you can please share the screen again. Can somebody please read the translation? I mean, this verse and the translation, please.
Hare Krishna, Archana Sunil Kumar Mataji, you can read the verse, and Archana Sri Radha Mataji, the translation. Hare Krishna.
Maitreya Uvacha Ango Dvijavacha Shrutva Yajamana Sudurmana Tat Prashtum Vyasarjat Vacham Sadasyam Stad Anutnyaya. Hare Krishna, pronounce Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Maitreya explained that King Anga, after hearing the statements of the priest, was greatly aggrieved. At that time, he took permission from the priest to break his silence and inquired from all the priests who were present in the sacrificial arena. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can we read the 30 verse and purport so we can combine both, because they both are very similar. So we'll take them both together.
Hare Krishna, Shanti Mataji, you can read the shloka, and Meenakshi Mataji, the translation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Na gacchantyahuta deva na grihnanti grahaniha sadasat patayo bhrutha kimavadhyam maya kritam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
King Anga addressed the priestly order. My dear priest, kindly tell me what offense I have committed. Although invited, the demigods are neither taking part in the sacrifice nor accepting their share.
Just excuse me a moment, my laptop charger. Krishna. Sorry about that. So what is happening here now is that first thing that we are saying here is King Anga just didn't speak. He first sought the permission. So it shows here that silence is also an integral part of big sacrifices like that. So he was not speaking and he asked permission. So that's a very nice thing, that he just didn't just start speaking and oh, what is happening? All right. So this is the first thing. And then he inquired that why demigods are not accepting share in that sacrifice. So interesting thing to note here is, when things didn't go according to plan, everything was right, everything was perfect, everything was going fine. But when it did not, the results were not according to what the expectation was, King Anga did not become baffled. He did not become, morose. He did not start condemning. oh, this is all humbug, there's no this is all process is does not work and all. So this is what it is. Here we have to learn that even though we are following all these regulative principles, we are following so many we are following all the rules, regulations, we are chanting, and we don't see the desired result. It's not that the process is not working. We have to always become humble, like King Anga, as he's showing by his example, that we become humble. We introspect that what wrong am I doing? What offenses am I committing? What is it that I can do so I can get the desired result? And that is how. And then if that is still not working, then we inquire from the seniors, we inquire from spiritual master, that what wrong am I doing? And this is what King Anga is showing by his example, that yes, it is something that is not going according to plan. Let's ask, let's inquire, rather than becoming morose, sad, or start the other way, the flip side. This is a ritual, it doesn't work. We should not become like that. Rather, we should become humble. And if we become humble, that's where we will start experiencing the bliss of this process of Krishna consciousness. So let's read verse 31 now. It's a very interesting verse.
Hare Krishna.
Hare.
Krupamai Mataji, you can read the shloka, and Shobha Mataji, you can read the translation. Mataji, the purport also you want us to read?
Purport we have,
Okay.
will be fine.
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, am I audible, Mataji?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Sadasa pataya ucha naradevaha bhavato nagham tavan manaksitam asti ekam paraktanam angam yadhidrik tavam apraja. Thank you, Mataji. Dandatna.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam Matajis and Prabhujis. Synonyms, translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Right.
Translation. The head priest said, O king, in this life we do not find any sinful activity even within your mind, so you are not in the least offensive. But we can see that in your previous life you performed sinful activities, due to which, in spite of your having all qualifications, you have no son. Haribol. Thank you, Mataji. Dandavats.
So now what is happening here is that now the priests are starting to say, the priests are telling him why the demigods are not accepting the offerings, that the sacrifice, why they are not accepting. So the first thing that really struck me when I read this is, he was not sinful even in mind, right? Now, does it really matter if you're sinful in mind? Oh, one may commit, one may argue. Yeah, I'm thinking about, any example. Let's say I'm thinking about eating something which has onion and garlic, but I'm not acting on it. Is that sinful? Is that sinful? So this is one thing that really struck me. That, is it considered really sinful if you are thinking about a sinful thought in your mind? The answer is yes and no. Let's see what Prabhupada has to say. So in a particular lecture, Shrimad Bhagavatam 6.1.7 in San Francisco, 10th of September 1968, this is what Prabhupada said. Quote, sinful activities function in three ways. Here it is stated, what is that? Mana ukti panabhi. Mana ukti panabhi. By mind, by activities of the mind, and by the activities of our word, and by activities of our senses. By three ways we can commit sinful activities. If I think that I shall kill you, or I shall do some harm within my mind, that is also a sin. Unquote. So this is very clear for us. Prabhupada has made it very clear for us that sinful activity, even though it's sitting in my mind, It is considered sinful. So this is why it says here that King Anga, he was so pure that he was not even thinking of sinful activity in his mind. So yes, if we think about a sinful activity, we'll contemplate on it. And once we contemplate on it, eventually there'll be some action, right? Who is the example of this? Jamil, right? When he was in the forest, he saw some men and women engaged in some illicit activity, right? And then he went on contemplating, thinking. He's a very pious Brahmana. He is not just an ordinary person. What did he go to forest for? He went to forest to collect wood to perform a sacrifice. He just didn't go around roaming in the forest. He was actually engaged in some spiritual activity. But when he saw this, he went on contemplating, thinking. Eventually, sure enough, he then got engaged with the woman, and then we know the whole pastime that he had children and he performed so many sinful activities to maintain that family, gave up his spiritual life, gave up his good wife, gave up his parents, everything he gave up. So sinful activity, if committed in mind, it definitely will eventually turn into action. So we have to be very, very careful about, not associating with the object of the senses, not associating with these things which will eventually make us contemplate on it. One may argue that, yes, I'm not engaging in eating something that is like meat, fish, eggs, but I'm sitting with somebody who's eating meat, fish, eggs. Definitely there will be some contemplation, and eventually sometimes one may act on it. So we have to always be very careful about being so pure, even in our thought process, because mind, anyways, we know it's first, we are here, but the mind is straight away gone somewhere else. So we have to be really careful about what we are associating and what we are putting in our mind. Anyways, there is so much which is not in our control. There are billboards, there are people who are talking around, swearing and this and that, and people, billboards have all this, I was just in Delhi some days back, and I'm seeing these billboards with this model is generated by AI, perfect in every way. Now, there's no way you can control you not looking or you not doing this. Your eyes will go there. So those factors are not in our hand, but let us at least control those factors in our hand and keep our mind pure as much as we can. So this is one thing that was very interesting I found in this purport. But when we started, I said yes and no, isn't it? I said yes, if one thinks in the mind, and then eventually they'll contemplate and act. But there is one shortcut, if you like, one liberty that we have got in this age of Kali, especially in terms of offenses committed in mind against devotees or Vaishnava Prat. One does not get any reaction to offenses committed in mind. So this is some, how do we say it, some liberty we have got, but we should not cash on it. We should still keep our mind pure. We should still be respectful to all the Vaishnavas and all. So this is about sinful activity on mind. And then comes another interesting part in this purport, where we see that it's talking about the sun, right? Generally, grihastha life means children, isn't it? And then the scriptures are always saying son, son, son. There is never a mention of daughter. Why is that? Is it that son, that the male and female, we are discriminating that, oh, then that male is better, female is not? But actually, that is not the case. Everybody has their roles to play. In this particular context that we are talking, in this particular scenario that we are talking, the sun, it's actually, there are so many types of hell, and there is one specific hell which is called Put. So the one who delivers the ancestors from that hell is called Putra. So one who delivers the ancestors from this hell called Put is called Putra. All right. Now, I'm going to say something really strong and powerful, but please remember these are not my words. I am quoting these words from Prabhupada's purport, Shrimad Bhagavatam 9.18.44. All right. Again, it's very strong, but this is Prabhupada, all right? We know Prabhupada is somebody he can just say rascal, right? And here also he's saying something really, really strong.
Mataji, can you please repeat the reference?
Shrimad Bhagavatam 9.18.44 purport.
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Putra means son and Mutra means urine. Both a son and urine come from the same genitals. If a son is obedient devotee of Lord, he is called Putra or a real son. Otherwise, if he is not learned, excuse me, or not a devotee, a son is nothing better than urine. All right. Pretty heavy, pretty strong words, right? But this is Prabhupada again. And it actually is very relevant, right? We have to remember that there is absolutely no guarantee that the son will be good or bad. Is there anybody who can say sure shot that yes, we'll do this, we'll get a son and he will deliver us? There's absolutely no guarantee. Our scriptures are full of those examples where the sons have not done what they are supposed to do. What are those examples? Let's see first the examples of bad sons. We have example of Duryodhan, right? Duryodhan was actually just sinful activity after sinful activity after sinful activity. And of course, Dhritarashtra had a part to play in it, but he was not the son who would just accept and move on. And because of him, Dhritarashtra was actually about to go in another path. But because of Vidura, fortunately, that was not the case. Vidura made sure that Dhritarashtra got a higher destination. But in terms of son, we know Duryodhan was nowhere a qualified son. And then very soon, in the next few sessions, we'll be studying about King Vena. King Vena was so much of a I would like to say a character. He was so much of an example of a bad son that King Anga actually left his home, being frustrated with all these things. And even in everyday examples we see, there are so many chants that people think, oh, my son will deliver me and they'll be my dependent. But especially in the Western world, we see that all the elderly people are rotting in aged cares. And the situation of aged care is so horrible, the way they are treated, the way they are taken care. It's so bad. So how, even if they are not taking care in this life, how we expect them to be delivered in the next life, right? But then on the contrary, there are good examples also, good sons also. We have Puru, the son of Yayati. There is a whole pastime coming in 9th canto that he was such a good son that he gave up his youth so that his father could enjoy with his mother. Interesting, but this is an example, right? Then we also have example of Shravan Kumar, that his blind parents, he was taking him everywhere. So there is no guarantee, absolutely no guarantee that even though you want a son or you want, it's not possible that there is absolute guarantee that son will deliver you, right? And another important thing one has to remember is we are not dependent on son for our deliverance. Who do we depend on? Krishna. It's not Krishna says that, just have a son and I will deliver. Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam. Krishna does not say that you have a son and that son will deliver. Krishna is saying, I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. So this is something very important to remember. And there was another interesting point, another touchy topic here, that it is said here in the purport that we are reading, that when one does not have children in this life, it's because of some sinful activity they have committed in the past life. So what does this tell us? If somebody does not have children, should they resort to artificial means of having children? So again, we have example in scripture of this, that, these days we have so many artificial ways, IVF and this and that, surrogate, and so many ways one can have a child. So much business is propagating for all these things. But rather than going above the board and trying so desperate, if we can just be satisfied, accepting that, yes, I do not have this because of my sinful activity, if one just remains satisfied and continues their Krishna consciousness, it is way much better. And what example do we have in scripture for this? Anybody knows? Anybody, any idea?
Hare Krishna. Mataji, Uttanpat.
Uttanpad, how, Mataji? He had two
Ah,
children.
no. No, sorry, that Chitraketu Katha.
Yes, you're right. Yes. So King Chitraketu was in very similar situation. He had thousands or maybe more, lakhs. I'm not even sure. Shrimad Bhagavatam gives so much big. I think million or lakh, not even thousands. So many wives he had. But he did not have children with any of them. Right? And the king is allowed to even have relation with maid servants. So many options here, but he had child with no one. But he was so desperate, he was so much hankering for a son, that he asked for a boon and a blessing. And the rishi told him, please, the son will give you misery also. And he's like, yeah, the son, he'll be naughty, he'll not obey me. What more he will do? He'll probably do this, he'll do that. That's fine. I'm happy with that. But I want a son. And sure enough, the name of the son was Harsha Shoka. And sure enough, the child was hardly 6 years old when some situations happened and he left the body. Right? So even if we are trying so deliberate, so desperate, and trying to go against the laws of nature and have it, if it's not in our destiny, it's not gonna be there. So very important thing to remember, even though Grihastha Ashram says a son, one should not be morose if there is nothing. Krishna is always there. Krishna, if we just depend on Krishna, he is our deliverer. He will deliver us swiftly. We should just continue Krishna consciousness patiently and then live our life happily. Right. So this is an interesting thing. This is why it's a very interesting verse. So many learnings from this about sinful activity in mind and about Grihastha in general. Let's go to the next verse.
Hare Krishna, Prashanti Mataji, read the sloka and Barnari Mataji, the translation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Tata sadhaya padrante atmanam suprajam nrupa ishtaste putra kamasya putram dasyati yajnabhuk. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. Translation. O King, we wish all good fortune for you. We have no son, you have no son, but if you pray at once to the Supreme Lord and ask for a son, and if you execute the sacrifice for that purpose, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will fulfill your desire. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat
Hare
Pranams.
Krishna. So here, instead of resorting his own means, instead of finding his own solution, the priests are telling him. He's not going himself and starting to do all these different procedures and starting to think on his own. He is following the right path. He is following the advice. He is following just sorry, please excuse me a moment. Sorry, please excuse me. There are so many sick people in this house at the moment, and I had to answer to a call. Sorry. Okay. So now what we were discussing is the king did not resort on his own that I will find a solution myself. Rather, all these priests are advising him that if you pray to Supreme Personality of Godhead and you ask for son, then it will, then the sacrifice will go ahead. So it's interesting that they are suggesting that King Anga perform a sacrifice and then he will get a son. So what is happening here is all ultimately Krishna is the Bhuktaram and Yajna Tapasam. So all the sacrifices are meant to please Krishna. And then demigods also come. If Krishna comes, the demigods will also come to accept their share. So basically what the Brahmanas, the priests are suggesting is, all right, the Ashwamedh sacrifice is not complete because you do not have son. But if you perform a sacrifice to get a son and please Lord Vishnu will come, all the demigods will also come. So in that way, even the Ashwamedh Yajna will be finished. Because when Lord Vishnu comes, the demigods will come, they will also accept the sacrifice, and both you will get results for both. So that is what is basically happening. And the priests are basically suggesting this because we know that, in Shrimad Bhagavatam, we have heard that whatever desires one have, it's better to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Akama sarva kamova muksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So this is why they are suggesting that you perform sacrifice to please nobody, not a specific person, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right. Let's go to the next verse.
Hare Krishna, Shilpa Mataji, you read the shloka and I'll read the translation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Danvat Mataji. Hare Krishna. Tatha Swabhaga Ghyani. Am I audible?
Yes, Mataji.
Tatha Swabhaga Ghyani. Griha Grahishyanti Divokasah Yajna Purushah Sakshadapatyaya Hari Vritaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
When Hari, the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their shares in the sacrifice. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this we already discussed that, if Lord Vishnu comes, the demigods will definitely come and they will also they'll be accepting. So all the sacrifices are basically meant for Lord Vishnu and not the demigods. We'll read about this in the next verse. Let's continue reading.
Hare Krishna, Krishnamurti Prabhu, you read the shloka and Shobha Mataji the translation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji,
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranams Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Stan kaman haridvajya udyanyan kamayate janaha aradito yatai vaisha thata pumsam phalodayaha. Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranams Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavats Pranam. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
The performer of the sacrifices under karma kanta activities achieves the fulfillment of the desire for which he worships the Lord. Hari Bol, Dandavats Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So we are coming across a term here. It's called karma kanda. All right. What does karma kand mean? Basically, karma kand means you want something, you perform a sacrifice and you get it. This is what karma kand basically means, right? So let's say somebody wants a son, for example. Then there is some pumswan or some particular ritual you follow, you get a son. Then Prabhupada always says this: you want a beautiful wife, you worship Uma. Your health is not good, you worship sun god, and so on. So basically, this is karma kanda. You do something and you get the results. right? Fruitive activities. Basically, this is what it is called. So this makes one a karmi. He performs some activity and then he does something and he gets it. This is what it means, that one performs an activity and they get it, right? But it's interesting, this is written in the purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead gives all living entities conditioned within this material world full freedom to act in their own way. What does this mean? Right? Right. This we are touching on a very important point here. We are touching on how one should rely on one's own strength versus how we depend on Krishna for what we want. So there's one side, these people who say you work and you get accordingly. And the other side, there are devotees who just perform acts for pleasure of Krishna. Basically, we are talking of karmis versus devotees, right? So what is the role of Supreme Personality of Godhead in all this? Is it that the Lord is partial to his devotees? And to karmis, he's just, sitting with a big rod saying, yes, you did something wrong, I'm here to punish you. No. The Lord here is saying that even though you are in this conditioned world, you have full freedom to act in your own way. So either, like the government gives us full freedom, right? Does the government sit and watch everybody? Yes, he did this, let me just do this. He did this, let me do this. Is the government watching? Oh, the speed zone is 50, but you are driving on 70. Is the government watching? Sometimes the policemen are there, especially in the Western world, they sit in the cars and as soon as you speed, they come out and fine you and all. But most of the times there is a choice. Either you follow the road rules and be safe and others are safe, or you don't follow the road rules. You are not safe, others are not safe. That choice is always there. The government always gives choice whether you want to be a free citizen or crime committing citizen and then go to jail. So similarly, the supreme government of Krishna, the supreme father Krishna, he is not somebody who is, there condemning you or doomed. You're doomed if you don't follow my path. Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell. That's not his way. He's given us full freedom out of his love to act in what we want. And as we act, we get the result. So this is what happens with karmis, right? The karmis, they don't. There's very good example. We're gonna study about this in a meantime. But let's first understand Krishna is not partial. And in Bhagavad Gita 4.11, Krishna says, that "Ye yatha mam prapandyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham." So he'll give the benefits accordingly. 4.11, you worship him, you get whatever, as much as you surrender, you will be given the benefits according, right? So then why is it saying here that worshipping Krishna only? In the purport we'll see about the worship of demigods also, right? Why demigods? So Mataji, if you can open Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, verse number 20, just the translations. So because we're gonna discuss 20 through 24.
Mataji, just this translation from 20 to 24
Yes,
or each
Mataji,
shloka?
just the translation. So if you just go on the chapter 7, just the translation should do it. Okay. All right. So then the question may come that why we are only, Mataji, 20. If you can go to 20, please. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So why is it specifically mentioned about the Lord and why not the demigods? Because we are touching the topics of Karma Kand. I'm also touching upon this topic here. Karma Kand basically means worshipping demigods also. Karma Kand means you want this, you worship this demigod like we discussed. But then Krishna here is saying, oh, I give them as you worship, I give them accordingly. What is this? Here somebody is saying worship demigods, the demigods will give you. But Krishna is saying, I also reward. Here is the answer to it. As we read in the previous verse, that if whatever desires, whether a karma, you don't have desires, or you have karma, you have desires, just worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But here, those who worship the demigods, why they are worshipping demigods, we'll understand. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender onto demigods and follow particular rules and regulations of worship according to their natures. So it's like, sometimes a child wants something. Then the father, we know father is strict, father will not give. So they go to mother. And the mother, and then indirectly mother has to go to father to get the child thing for the child. So this is something like that. The demigods are actually the representatives of Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because they are thinking only of their own desires, their karma, their desires, that's all they can see. And all they want to do is fulfill their desires very quickly. That is why they want to go to demigods. But here in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying they are less intelligent. Why? Let's see that. I am in everyone's heart as super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make their faith steady so that they can devote themselves to that particular deity. Mataji, the next, can you scroll? Keep scrolling, please. Yeah. So men of small intelligence worship the demigods and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship demigods go to the planets of demigods and my devotees reach the supreme planet. So basically, this is what Krishna is saying. This is where as you worship surrender, as you surrender unto me, I give accordingly comes. If you worship demigod, Krishna is there. He is also sitting in your heart. He makes the faith strong. So actually, whoever is worshipping demigod is also worshipping Krishna indirectly. So this is what it is saying here. So karmis or karma kandis for that matter, even though they are indirectly worshipping Krishna, according to their what they deserve and what they desire, they're gonna get it. Right? So it's something like a corporate work, right? You work and you get the results accordingly based on your karma. But then what happens in corporate world? They say your salary is let's say, for example, 48 lakhs. But then what will happen? There is tax, there is a levy, there is a surcharge, there is this, there is that. And finally, what will you get in your hand? Maybe a little bit something, right? That same thing is happening with the demigod worship. The demigods, when they give the result, your karma, your desire, you deserve, all this is taking into factor before you actually get the fruit. And what is happening with the devotee on the other hand? With the devotee, Krishna personally takes charge. Krishna is not there thinking about karma, deserve, desire, anything. Krishna is personally taking charge. How do we know? He has given so many reassurances in Bhagavad Gita. He is saying, Kaunteya pratijana hi name bhakta pranashyati. He is not saying himself. He is saying, my devotee, Kaunteya, Arjuna, you declare it boldly. Because Krishna, he is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He may change his word. But if Arjuna says something, Krishna will have to keep that word because of his love for his devotee. So that is one verse. Then we have Yogakshemam Vahamyaham, right? Whatever you have, I will protect. And what you're lacking, I'll give you. And then he says, Sarva dharman paritajya. So many words, list after list after list. Nobody gives as many assurances as Lord Krishna. And that is why being a karmi or karma kandi for that matter is always a bad idea, right? We have an example, that there are two scenarios. Imagine here, there is a monkey and the baby is clinging on to the mother. Have we all seen it, right? And then there is another scenario. The cat usually takes its kitten by the teeth. Which one is safe? Which one is better? Any ideas?
The cat, Mataji.
The cat, right? Why? Why the cat? Because here the cat's responsibility to take the kitten from A to B safely. The kitten just merrily hands, legs are moving like this and smiling. Hey, I'm having a joy ride. But for a monkey's child, it has to hold on to make sure. It's the responsibility of the child to make sure it does not slip out of mother's grip. So the karmis, karma kandis, all these are like that, right? But if devotees, if they completely depend on Krishna, Krishna is a swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. We have so many examples of that, right? How Prabhupada was so much dependent on the Lord that, when Prabhupada went in Jalduta, he had heart attacks, right? And then the captain of the ship, he is saying the ocean was so quiet. It was unusually pleasant. It was like Krishna is driving the chariot of Arjuna himself. So even though all these situations were seemingly disturbing, Prabhupada still had faith and he just could take through, he just could, had complete faith, and Krishna sure enough came and protected his devotee. So the point is, no matter how difficult the situation gets, we should not engage in worshipping demigods, karmakand, rather have complete faith on Krishna, and Krishna will provide us with what we lack and what we are, and he will protect what we are missing, right? And there is another thing, that a Krishna conscious devotee is always peaceful and karmis are not. Krishna bhakta nishkam ateva shanta, bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta. That is what happens. Krishna conscious devotee always peaceful, dependent on Krishna. He will take care of me. He will give me what I need. Always peaceful. But kami is, bhukti is, mukti is always hankering. This. They are always lusty, and that is why always disturbed. Let's go to the next verse, Mataji. We'll just read the purport for this. Sorry, translation, not the purport, translation.
Hare Krishna, purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada.
Sorry, translation, Mataji, just the translation, please.
Okay. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, for the sake of a son for King Anga, they decided to offer oblations to Lord Vishnu, who is situated in the hearts of all living entities. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
So now they are performing the sacrifice, right? And Prabhupada speaks in the purport about animal sacrifice, right? So animal sacrifice, is it contradictory to our regulative principle, or is it just like, they are doing the same? Why is this contradictory? We are saying do no harm, but here there is animal sacrifice. So Prabhupada is explaining nicely in the purport that when they perform the animal sacrifice, the animal that is offered in sacrifice is an old animal, and then once the verses and every ritual is performed properly, the animal gets a new body. Unlike the slaughter, where it's just killed, finished, And that slaughter is also very bad. They have to undergo a lot of suffering. Here, the Brahmanas who are offering the sacrifice, Brahmanas who are reciting the verses, and the animal, all of them are benefited. It's not that, oh, it is for their taste or for their eating they are doing this. When they offer the animal in sacrifice, it's actually rejuvenated and gets a new body. So it's basically like a test for Brahmanas who are reciting the verses, right? So it is not killing or not contradictory to the principles. It's just for the higher benefit of the Brahmanas, higher benefit of the society, because this sacrifice is not performed for self, for them to get anything. When they perform this sacrifice, they're performing it for the good of society, of the whole kingdom in general. So it's benefit for everybody, even the animal that is sacrificed, because it gets a new body. And here Lord Vishnu is called Sipi Vishta, means somebody who accepts the offerings through fire, all right? Through the flames, through the fire. Let's go to the next verse. We'll just read the translation. As soon as the oblation was offered in the fire, a person appeared from the fire altar wearing a golden garland and a white dress. He was carrying a golden pot filled with rice boiled in milk. So basically now they perform the sacrifice, the result is coming. Verse 37. Let's read the translation again.
Hare Krishna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The king was very liberal, and after taking permission from the priest, he took the preparation in his joint palms, and after smelling it, he offered a portion to his wife. Hare Krishna.
So what is happening here? The king is again very respectful. Oh, the fire, the prasad is here and not just running. He is first taking permission from the priest very respectfully. And then when the priest agreed, he went, he took the offering. And here the king is said liberal. The king is liberal. The sweet rice was meant for him, but he is very liberal, magnanimous. And that is why here the word uses udaradi, right? So even though his wife was unfit, he still gave it to him. Why the wife was unfit, we'll study in the upcoming verses. But let's for now understand this, that even though the wife was unfit, he gave it to the wife as well. Now, what do we understand from this, right? We should always be careful about sharing the mercy with those who are not deserving. Here, in this particular case, in this particular scenario, it was a plan of Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the purport states here, that King Anga was not an ordinary person, and what events were happening in his life were direct intervention of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It was what happens is, when the normal people are suffering, it's action and consequence of their own karma. But when devotees are suffering, especially, there's neophyte devotees, right? Neophyte devotees undergo the suffering. There are two options. Either they will increase their faith in Supreme Personality of Godhead and strengthen their faith and become Madhyamadikari, or they'll give up their faith and they'll go away. This is a neophyte devotee. When somebody who is a Madhyamadikari or somebody whose faith is little strong, when they undergo these kind of troubles, like King Anga, he's undergoing that with his son, what they do is they suffer, and their faith increases. So when devotees are suffering, it's not because of their karma, can be because of their karma, but there is also some intervention of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because as soon as devotees are suffering, as soon as devotees are undergoing some things, they depend more on Krishna. Their faith increases. And as soon as their faith increases, it's like, they become more devoted. And then some situation comes, the faith increases more. We have seen examples in scriptures about Pandavas. We have seen Queen Kunti is asking for more difficulties, right? So this is Madhyamadikari. And when Uttamadikari undergoes through tribulations, it's simply increasing his glories, right? He is suffering. He does, for him it does not matter. His faith is there, but everybody is glorifying, oh, they underwent so many troubles, but they are still Krishna conscious. So when devotees are undergoing all these tribulations, it's just because of their, it's a way that their faith in Krishna is increasing. Krishna is making their glories increase. So this is what it is said here. Even though King Angas, his wife was not that qualified, he gave him the offering, and that is why that is why, he suffered. But we should always be careful. That does not mean we also do the same. If somebody does not understand the glories of the holy name, there is no need, because that's an offense. We know the ninth offense, that one should not preach to the faithless, like in the sense, one who does not know the glories of holy name, we should not go and preach it to them. So we have to always be careful that there are always chances people are going to misuse that. Like we have some examples that they were given benedictions they were not deserving, and it can be dangerous. Like Lord Shiva gave benediction to Vritrasur, who said, if you put your hand on your whoever's head you put your hand, it will the head will just smash. And what did he do? First thing, he wanted to try on Lord Shiva. Why? To get his wife. So we have to be careful about uh, sharing the mercy, and always remember that let us just keep our faith more and more on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord will definitely take care of us no matter what, in whatever situation, circumstance we are. It's just a matter of keeping faith with full heart and worshipping Him exclusively. Even that verse, Akama Sarva Kamova, it says Tivrena. If we worship with full devotion, with full heart, the Lord will give us what we are lacking and will protect what we have, and will sure enough be going smoothly on the path of back to home, back to Godhead. So any questions, any comments?
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Mataji, your kind self explained the sinful actions took place in mind and senses.
Yes.
So, because we are in this material world, or that too in family life, that too is in Kali Yuga.
Yes.
The youngerly people, I am elder one.
Yes.
So the youngerly people, they will talk, they will act like anything. So how we can able to overcome them, and how we have to, how we can able to reciprocate, how we have to digest. One question. Second is liberation. Liberation not by sun, but liberation will be done by Supreme Lord only. So,
Yes.
being a elderly people, we have no other go to depend on them. Even though we have got our own survival is the test for nowadays. So we have to survive. Till then, we must not be depending upon the young people also. So, yes, I do agree. So liberation will be done by Supreme Lord only. I have got faith, 100%. I have no doubt about that. So by day-to-day livelihoods, so dependency is so essential. So how we can able to overcome, and then in what platform we can be in all situation. This is my second question. Please don't think otherwise. The thing is what I am facing.
Yes.
That is my personal problem. So please enlighten me. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Sure. Sure. So regarding your first question about how we can limit ourselves from young people's association and their thought process, is that correct? Right? That's the first portion, right? First portion of the question.
Yes, yes, Mataji. Yes.
Yes. So initially we may face as, oh, when you want to do your thing, don't want to hear that. Let's say, for example, TV is going on in your house, you don't want that example. Or for young people, they are at a workplace and they are discussing about checking out a pub, for example. You don't want that, but you are still in that situation. It's simple. You continue your business. What is the most that will happen? They'll think you don't want to fit. You're not one of them. You don't like this. Initially, it will be a problem, but then they will know. Yes, this person, they don't like to go to pub, they will not. This person does not like to talk this, they will not involve. They'll understand that yes, you don't like this, and they will eventually stop doing it. But first, you don't have to participate just to fit in or just to accept, right? Normal conversations are okay, like how was your work? When you have grandchildren, you can ask them that, oh, what happened at school? What did you do? Your friends. These kind of conversations are okay. There has to be some link with them. And then you can give your message, because unless there is a common ground, you can't preach also. Let's say the grandchild says, oh, this happened at school, then you can preach something. But if you're not even talking, how are you going to preach? So there can be little conversation, little interactions, but when it's coming to too much mundane, and it's coming to cricket, when it's coming to share market, this is not, it's okay to get up from that place, and it's okay to go and continue your hearing, your reading, it's fine. They will understand. Initially, they may feel awkward. Oh, my father doesn't like this, or my uncle doesn't like this. He's like that. That's fine. Because for us, our time is very important. Our consciousness is very important. And if we don't put our effort in the right place, we are losing time and we are losing consciousness. After so much effort, we have reached to this level of Krishna consciousness to get this consciousness. If we just waste trying to fit in, it will be a waste of our time and our effort and energy. So this is first part of the question. Second part of the question, yes, there will be some dependency. For example, you need to go to hospital, they'll take you to the hospital. If they are willing to do it, fine. If there is a relation like that, fine. You can continue doing on that. But in the mind, we should always remember that it's only Krishna who is helping us. It's only Krishna on whom we are dependent. I know this one devotee, she's actually our Guru Mata. They travel around the world. They travel so many countries, 25, 30 countries. And they were in a place called Finland. It's in Europe, in a city called Helsinki. Out of the whole around the world trip, they were in this particular place where Guru Mata was singing Mangla Aarti, and she got a stroke at that time.